Welcome to the Old Republic Podcast.
We are a podcast that discusses Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, general sci-fi, and about the stories that inspired a galaxy.
Consider this a spoiler warning for everything under the sun and the twin suns in that galaxy far, far away.
This is where the fun begins.
Okay, so Brian, I really struggled with the Rise of Skywalker from a hero's journey perspective.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's a little it's a little jostling, I guess. This one definitely is not laid out quite as clearly as some of the other films, I don't think. But I came to terms with my hero's journey pretty well here for Rise of Skywalker. We've made it all the way through now. This will be the ninth and final installment of the hero's journey analysis for the Star Wars films. So that's pretty exciting. And ending, with the Rise of Skywalker, of course, episode 9. So, I didn't have like a ton of trouble with it, to be honest. So, like before I started watching it, I usually try to just kind of imagine like what the steps are going to be. And for some of those, they're very easy, right? For, A New Hope is very easy. For, pretty much all of the original trilogy, it's very easy. It's a little trickier kind of for the prequels, but really the sequel trilogy was a little bit harder. And I don't know if that's because these films are newer, 8 years, I guess, when we started doing these back with The Force Awakens. But, this one just being 5 years old, it's probably the film of Star Wars that I've watched the fewest amount of times just because of the time in which it's come out. So I had a little bit of trouble just kind of initially like figuring out where I was going to go with my hero's journey analysis. But as I was watching it earlier today, it came together for me pretty good, I think.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to hear. Because when I was watching it, I was just like, so many things were happening, and I think like The Rise of Skywalker is just like a movie like you either really love or you really don't love. Um, but in a different way rather than like say The Last Jedi in my mind. It's just
Mhm.
a very kind of different film, just a very different pacing style. And yeah, like it's everything. I don't think you can say like they didn't put everything in the kitchen sink in, except maybe there's not like a literal kitchen sink in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't remember if there's an actual kitchen sink, but yeah, it had the difficult task of you had to wrap up all of these storylines, right? So you have your original trilogy, kind of heroes there, Han, Leia, Luke, there that you want to get endings for, C-3PO, R2-D2. You have your sequel trilogy characters you're trying to give an ending to because, supposedly this at the time at least is going to be the final film. And that's even more difficult than say like episode 3, which didn't have to really close out any sort of storyline because that was going to pick back up into the next trilogy. So it was a monumental feat, I think. And then because of that, you just end up with so much stuff happening. There's, I don't know, like 10, 12 characters you're trying to keep and give fulfilling ends to. And that becomes quite the challenge. And it makes the hero's journey bit of it a little bit trickier. So when I was going through, I kept it, specifically to Rey and to Kylo Ren slash Ben Solo here for my hero's journey analysis. But certainly there's a lot of characters you could go through this with. Poe has quite the journey in this one. Finn as well, and really a bunch of the characters. C-3PO even you could do a hero's journey for C-3PO. That would be
yeah.
kind of fun and interesting to do. But let's get into the Rise of Skywalker a little bit here, Cassia. So this was released in 2019. It was directed by J.J. Abrams, and it was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. Did not win any of these 3, but it was nominated for original score, visual effects, and sound editing. Allegedly, this is the third most expensive film ever made, costing at about
Wow.
$416 million,
I'm sure
according
they made it back.
to some reports. They did in fact make it back. It made almost $1.1 billion, and it's currently sitting at the time of this recording at the 19th top grossing film of all time. So pretty good job at making money back from that purchase in 2012 here with these 3 films. So Cassia, we looked at a little bit of the KOTOR links in episode 7 and episode 8, and there were a couple there. There's a lot in this one, I think.
Yeah, so the KOTOR similarities are up to 11. So it's like a force bond up to 11. It's called a force dyad. And they said like it's like a connection unseen for generations. And in my mind, it's like each force bond slash dyad's a little bit different, but I'm like, cool, I am
Mhm.
taking this and running with it. So KOTOR is
That's right.
canon. You can't
KOTOR
change my mind. So
KOTOR is canon. That's right. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, you've got the dyad there. You've got the yellow lightsaber at the end. That's a canonized Bastille's lightsaber, I think, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's the case. And while they don't get an official naming in the film, you have all of the Sith people there that are just hanging out in the arena. Those are the Revenites. We talked a little bit about that in our KOTOR is canon episode, but obviously that is drawing back on the parallels for Darth Revan, obviously. And to me, Exegol, especially like the interior and kind of around that and that spot where, that like platform is dropping down and it's going by all these big statues, that looks a lot like the tombs on Korriban, I think, from the first game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like an inverse Jedi temple in a way. Like all the dark side can really give you is death, you know.
Hmm.
It's fascinating. So,
Yeah, for
um
sure.
yeah.
I even saw kind of parallels there on Exegol as well, and it's going through, and you can see kind of the little tanks of like the clones of Snoke, right? The failed clones. Those look, I thought a lot kind of like those like tanks that held the Jedi on the Starforge of the Malak, where he was draining the life force out of them. I thought that was pretty similar in kind of the way that those looked and felt. And then obviously you have the Sith Armada there that reminded me an awful lot of the Starforge itself, just cranking out these ships for the Sith.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot going into this film. And I think you were able to master the hero's journey, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm just being bombarded with images, you know? So, yeah.
There are a lot of images. They are all are pretty nice looking images. I will say I forgot how good this movie looked. I hadn't watched it. I watched it not too long ago, actually, uh, like in November, I think. So it hadn't been super long time, but yeah, I was excited to get back and watch it. So yeah, let's get into the steps then, Cassia. So
Yeah.
first up here we have the ordinary world the hero has seen in their everyday life, and obviously this is a Star Wars, so it's going to include that title crawl. Did you see anything else in the ordinary world that we're witnessing here at
Yeah.
the start?
So I just put the ordinary world is a galaxy at war, and we just kind of see like in even just in the title crawl, it's just like the dead speak. It's like Palpatine's here, deal with it, you
The
know?
dead
And like
speak.
so
That's right.
yeah, so Ben is like uh let's start this off on Mustafar, and it's kind of growing back, so it's kind of healing, so that's nice.
Hmm.
And then I kind of put like in the notes like quick plot kind of the whole way through, and Ben kind of like finds the Wayfinder from Vader's castle and goes to Exegol, and he's like, I've been every voice inside your head. And
Hmm.
I was just like, oh, cool. He has a bajillion starships that are somehow staffed and have everything they need. So,
Ready
um,
to go. Palpatine was a man that planned ahead, I will say. So I guess yeah, had them all. I think we were only ever on board one of those, I think. So we don't know that they're all staffed, but at least one was,
maybe
for
they're
sure, for
staffed
sure.
by droids. I don't know.
There you go. There you
So,
go. Well, there were like 10,000 Sith people in that arena thing. They could have been working on some stuff
yeah,
maybe potentially. I don't know. So, yeah, so same kind of thing here for me obviously that section there. I also included Rey's Jedi training there. She's
yeah.
going through that obstacle course. That's kind of the ordinary world I had for Rey, right? Taking some lessons and stabbing that uh, little droid into a tree with a stick. Crushing poor BB-8. That's sad, but that is the kind of ordinary world, I guess, as far as Kylo Ren and Rey are concerned to get the movie started. And then that's going to get us into the call to adventure. So the call to adventure is the initiating incident of the story. So what's going to get our characters kicked off here on their journeys?
I kind of put the call to adventure, somehow Palpatine returned. Um,
Okay.
but I guess it's like Rey is like training and she keeps on saying, be with me, like she's trying to be with the Jedi of the past, trying to continue that Jedi lineage. And it's kind of like Poe is kind of continuing the re I was going to say rebellion, but it's the resistance's kind of legacy, and then Finn is kind of supporting them there, and he'll end up kind of helping like some of the First Order detractors,
Hmm.
so they all kind of have stuff to do, and Kylo is kind of figuring out stuff, you know, and yeah, it's it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, the call to adventure is basically the same thing. And really for all of the characters here in the film, the call to adventure is just, the fact that Palpatine is still alive, right? So for Kylo Ren, he's gone, he's found this Sith Wayfinder to get to Exegol, and he gets there and he discovers that Palpatine is alive. Palpatine has, still been kind of pulling the strings. And for Kylo Ren, I had specifically his call to adventure is Palpatine promising him a new empire, right? He can make Kylo Ren the most powerful, the leader of the entire galaxy. So that really, I think, is the call to adventure specifically for Kylo Ren. That's that promise from Palpatine. But everyone else, pretty much, yeah, it's just learning of Palpatine. Somehow Palpatine has returned, as you said. I think for Rey, it's learning that Palpatine is still alive, and that's going to kind of propel her on this journey to travel off to find it. She even makes mention that she had seen that Sith holocron and one of the texts that she took from Luke there, and talks to Leia, and you get a very 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 slight refusal of the call there between Leia and Rey. Leia says, "No, don't go," and Rey's like, "No, I'm gonna go anyways," and Leia's like, "All right, that sounds good." So let's get into those refusal of the call. So Palpatine is back. That's our call to adventure. The refusal of the call. The hero experiences some hesitation to answer the call. What do you think? What are the refusals? I made light of Rey's. I didn't have a lot of other refusals for her, to be honest. But what do you think, Cassia?
So refusal of the call, I kind of like said like team leads, like for good and bad. Rey and Kylo Ren have to figure out Palpatine and how to get there, like there meaning Exegol. Um, and there's lots of different little like refusals. And
Yep.
I mean that's kind of just the plot, like kind of like our little episode we did like on the story palette. I think this is kind of the most story palette-esque plot, which is funny because
Oh,
they
for sure. Yeah.
they wrote it for 4, but I'm like, I think it belongs for 9, So
hmm Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. The refusal to call was a little it was a little trickier. It was a little bit less specific. Oftentimes, there's something like very specifically that happens to your character here that keeps them from beginning that journey. But there's not really the case here. So for Rey, as I mentioned, Leia tells her not to go to Exegol, and Rey says, "No, I'm going to go," and that's what you would do. And Leia's like, "Okay, fair point." So that's it for Kylo Ren. Also, kind of a really just minimal kind of pushback, right? So they learn of like this First Order spy. That's kind of a refusal of the call, and he gets a little bit of pushback from the First Order officers, but like he throws that dude up into the ceiling, and they pretty much are like, go do whatever, go find that girl, go find, do whatever Palpatine wants you to do. That sounds good to us. So not really like much in the way of refusal of the call, but the way that the film is structured, it's kind of like this treasure hunt sort of thing. So you have like
yeah.
these little refusals kind of throughout the film there's not like
Yeah.
one major one that's keeping them because everyone really is kind of headed to this final ultimate destination on Exegol. So that's kind of what we had for the refusal there. A little bit thin, at least in our analysis. But like I said, there's a bunch of these that are going to come in, and we'll probably talk through those as we get to those. Something else that was a little bit tricky from here, Cassia, is the meeting with the mentor. So the hero gains the supplies, knowledge, and confidence needed to commence the adventure. So, are there mentors in this film? I mean, there are some, but there's not like a big, like monumental meeting with the mentor, at least not at this point in the story.
Yeah, so the meeting with the mentor, I put it as Ray, Poe, Finn, and Kylo's interactions with General Leia, and they kind of all have different, interactions with her. Ray is kind of like through the Force, that kind of lens, and then Poe is kind of like through the Resistance, and so is Finn, you know. Um, and then Kylo, it's like that's kind of her last act, is trying to reach out to Ben,
Mhm.
So I guess what do you think like this was like a good do you think like maybe they should have uh rich like killed off the character of General Leia in between 8 and 9, or do you kind of like what they did here?
Um, I I can see definitely like why um killing that character off would make sense because obviously we lost Carrie Fisher unfortunately
Yeah.
in the real world, which made it more difficult. And apparently, from kind of what I've read and have heard about kind of the story, it was that she was supposed to be much more of an important figure in the kind of third act of the film, which obviously had to get stripped down just because of the real life implications of losing Carrie Fisher. So that makes it tricky. I feel like that she um is used in very important ways, right? So she gets kind of the initial sort of meetings there with Ray, which is nice. She's able to call out to her son and kind of set that off, which is nice, and it makes her sacrifice feel kind of important in a way that's having her killed off screen or something else would not have felt. So I like that. I like the character. I like the emotionality of giving kind of everyone a chance to say goodbye to her in the film. So I'm happy kind of with the direction that they went for that character.
Yeah, I mean it's an impossible task, an impossible choice, and I mean it's a movie. There are real life implications, like we lost a real life person, So
Yeah.
um I just wondered what you thought. But
Yeah,
um
it would have like I said, it would have been hard to do it any other way. It would have been hard kind of the way that The Last Jedi was structured to do it in there. Maybe I don't know. Like it's hard um to kind of figure out. But I think, J.J. Abrams kind of did the best in leading the story. And like I said, I like the moments that we get with Leia in the film. So I think that it was okay. For me and my, storytelling lens that I'm looking at it through. I think that it is okay and works okay. And like I said, those are kind of some of the bigger mentor moments because really you have Kylo Ren, you have Rey, who are almost like mentorless through this film. Really, they kind of have their own interactions, carrying over from The Last Jedi where they're speaking and, kind of those uh conversations are getting more powerful between the two of them when they're able to actually like interact and to see the other environments and things that they're in. So that's really kind of the mentorship like aspects throughout the film. But yeah, you have Leia for both of the characters. You have Han obviously there for Kylo at the Death Star. You have Rey going back to see Luke, but those are kind of happening, scattered throughout. So I guess you could say Palpatine potentially is a mentor for Kylo Ren, a mentor figure, kind of in that sense at the beginning of the film. But yeah, it's kind of a lot of little interactions, so it's kind of the same for kind of the refusal to the call. It's all these like little like mini refusals. You have kind of all of these little mini mentoring moments, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, when we get to Pisana, we even kind of get the Force bond again, and I kind of see those as a little bit of mentoring, like
Mhm.
Rey and Kylo, mentoring each other, the Force kind of mentoring them, Lando mentoring them. Um, uh, just so much happens on Pisana.
A lot goes on Pasana. That's right.
They fly
Yeah,
now, quicksand, OG's dagger, Force heal, the Knights of Ren, Chewie dead, he not dead. Um, and
not dead. Ray jumps over a TIE fighter and cuts it like the wing off of it, and that's
forgot
like
about that
that's like
epic
the
moment.
least monumental thing. Yeah, that is an epic moment for sure. And that's my first threshold, at least for Ray, is Pisana. So crossing the first threshold, Cassia, the hero, commits wholeheartedly to the adventure. So we mentioned there was not a lot of pushback on getting into the adventure for these characters, right? So for me, Ray and obviously Finn, Poe, C-3PO, Chewbacca, that is going to Pisana, right, to go to try to track down this Sith Wayfinder that Luke had written about. He journaled about it, in his time there on Octo, probably. That was kind of the call for me. Kylo's I thought was a little bit more emblematic, right? It's basically Kylo reforging his mask. That is him, wholeheartedly, getting back in the groove of his Kylo Ren lifestyle.
For me, like crossing the first threshold, I'm not sure if it was looking for the dagger on Pisana, because it's like they're kind of beginning the quest, or like maybe Kajimi, but now that I think about it, I think they were looking for the dagger on Pisana. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of where the that book had led Ray to, right, to go to Pisana to look for Ochia Bestoon ship. She knew that was kind of the best place to find this Sith Wayfinder, I guess, assuming that he had one in his ship. And then yeah, lots of adventures happens there, lots of tests, allies and enemies for sure. So that's going to get us into our next section, tests, allies and enemies. The hero explores the special world, faces trials, and makes friends and enemies. So what do you think? Does Kylo even have any test allies and enemies? His are few and far between, but Rey has a lot of these, I think.
Yeah, so uh I am sad Rose wasn't in this movie more. Um,
True.
but I'm just kind of looking over my notes. So test allies and enemies. I kind of just put down Pisana and Kajimi because it seems like everyone's
Hmm.
just dealing with a lot. Like Poe kind of um goes through like he meets, is her name like Yori?
Oh, Zori Bliss. Yeah,
Zori. Yeah. Sorry to get those mixed up, but
she has a cool
yeah.
helmet.
Yeah, she has a cool helmet. And Finn ends up like when they get to later on like the Death Star ocean world, I don't know. Um he meets it's Xana, right? And
Uh, it's Jaina, I think is her name.
I'm just getting all of these names off by one letter. I'm so sorry, everyone.
Uh, sorry. I could be wrong on that. I'm gonna double check. I think that it's
Okay.
Jaina, but
Lando's daughter, you know. Um
Lando's potential daughter. We don't know. That's a story for another day.
I guess yeah, we'll get an answer there, you know. Um but yeah, it's kind of like everyone is dealing with a lot, and um Ray is kind of like um maybe dealing with like the fact that she's a Palpatine. And then like she has that force bond with Kylo, you
Hmm.
know, and then it's like, oh, you're a dyad in the force too that are one, you know. Um, so
Yeah.
everyone's just dealing with a lot. So how about you
There,
get to say it more eloquently than I?
everyone is dealing with a lot. And find out that your Palpatine. That's probably pretty heavy. It's going to weigh on you quite a bit, I think. So, yeah, for me, so test allies, enemies. Um, Really for Kylo, like his whole purpose now is to get Rey and to go back to Palpatine, right? So that's really all he's got going on. He's like the most powerful person, like in the whole like First Order now, right? He's the supreme leader, so he's not getting a lot of like pushback. So he's not really being tested too much. His crashing abilities are tested when Rey cuts his sweet TIE fighter wing off. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But Rey, on the other hand, is she's dealing with a lot. So they get to Pisana, right? So they meet Lando, ally. That's good. They find dead Ochi.
Yeah.
That's not great, but his dagger's there, so that's good. That snake, that's definitely a test for Rey, right? That snake's going to eat everyone, but she uses some sweet force abilities. That's another link to KOTOR 2, right? Beast control. She's able to talk that snake down, get it healed up, and then it's going to slither off. Happy snake. That's good. That's good. They end up getting chased by the First Order. They meet another friend, Dio, on board of Ochi's ship. That's nice. That's nice. Chewie, however, gets captured and potentially blown up. That's bad news. And I think for me, that's really kind of the big. I don't know. It's going to fall into my ordeal, but kind of that section there, and we'll circle back to that. And then, yeah, obviously going to end up on Kajimi because they got to go and get C-3PO's head straight so they can, get that engraving off of the blade. So, yeah, so there is a lot going on there, and you could say that any of these, I guess, really are kind of the refusal of the call because there's kind of a lot going on there, and maybe some of the Pisana stuff does fit better into refusal of the call. Maybe the Pisana section is more of the refusal, and maybe Kajimi is kind of that threshold committing to wiping C-3PO's memory and stuff like that. So maybe that's the case. You get John Williams there on Kajimi, so that's nice playing the bartender. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. So that was a lot to rattle off there. But we're going to get a little bit simpler here, at least on my end. But the next step up in our hero's journey is the approach to the innermost cave. The hero nears the center of the story and the special world. So where is the innermost cave?
Let me flip back. Uh, I would say getting to Exegol. That's what I would say, but maybe
Hmm.
yours is a lot earlier. Um, I really struggled in finding the right, little hero's journey things in this one.
Okay, okay. That's fair. That's fair. Exegol would be a very good kind of innermost cave, I think. To me, the innermost cave for both of our characters here, Kylo Ren, at least to start this step, and Rey, is the Death Star, right? The crashed Death Star there on the Endor water moon planet moon, I think. Um, yeah, so I think that going into that, the destroyed. Um, Death Star is the innermost cave there. It's where they're coming together. It's where they're both coming to grips over this one other wayfinder there, and they're going to have kind of this confrontation, which gets us into the ordeal, which I have basically being right here. So the ordeal, the hero faces the greatest challenge yet and experiences death and rebirth. So what do you think? Is yours happening on Exegol then, or what do you think, Cassie?
Well, I mean, Ray does experience like death and rebirth. I guess maybe,
Hmm.
okay, okay. So Ben, when they're fighting on the water planet, what's that place called? Keef Beer?
Yeah, Kefir, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, like Leia reaches out to Ben and then Ray just like straight up stabs him. And
Yeah, yeah, she does. It's heartless Ray. That's right.
yeah, and I guess like she's like, "Oh, sorry, I'll heal you." You know, um,
My bad.
it's like I think that's what Leia wanted you to do. But she's like she heals him and then she's like, "I did want to take your hand, Ben's hand." And then Ben and
Hmm.
Han have a great scene and he throws the saber away and um uh Finn and Poe learn that uh that Leia passed away and Poe has no idea what to do. He's like, I'm a general now, how do I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And Lando says, we had each other, that's how we won. I
Yeah.
kind of wish the characters would have spent more time together, but I guess like throughout the trilogy, I guess they do it here, but
Hmm.
um it kind of just feels like we're more informed that they hung out, Uh so that's what
Yeah,
happened.
for sure. And there's a bit of a time jump that happens between episodes 8 and 9 here, and you can see kind of the um sort of the familiarity that they have with the three of them, especially like at the beginning of the film, right? When they're Rey and Poe are kind of yelling at each other about what's going on and how things are going, because presumably we haven't got any kind of well, at least a lot of supplemental material. Presumably it's not going well, right? They left great. There were only
Yeah.
about 15 people left in the resistance, and that was about it. So presumably not going great. So I think we actually get a fair bit of kind of togetherness between these characters, and especially because it's alluded to that Finn is force sensitive, and they are able to kind of feel out into the force for one another. And that particular scene that you mentioned there, where Poe is sitting bedside of Leia there after she's passed on, is particularly moving. I think I like that scene a lot, so that's pretty good for me. um so for me, let's see, let's get back into the ordeal here. So for Kylo Ren, his ordeal is that he has a fight with Rey. He gets interrupted by his mom, and Rey stabs him, as you mentioned. That's not great. That's a pretty bad ordeal. But you know what happens there in your ordeal? You experience death and rebirth, and that's what happens. Kylo Ren is dead. Ben Solo is reborn. So has been reached out to by his mom. His dad, Han Solo, comes back and basically, you know, forgives him, tells him, it's okay, we make mistakes and move on. And he chucks that lightsaber out into the ocean, and he is good to go now as Ben Solo. So that's the ordeal for Ben Solo now. And then for Rey, I think that Rey's ordeal really kind of starts when she blows
Feels
up
guilt.
Chewbacca. Yeah, when she blows up Chewbacca's ship, I think is really kind of when that starts, and she's coming to grips with the fact that she is this has this Palpatine lineage, which she's going to get confirmed, kind of in the next section, I think, when they're having their little force chat when she's on Kajimi, and then he goes and he tells her, that she's a Palpatine when they're both on board that ship there. And she gives into hate a little bit. So that's not good. So I think it kind of starts there, and then it moves into like her having that confrontation with the Dark Rey, right? The dark version of herself. I think that kind of falls into the ordeal, and then obviously battling Kylo Ren there, feeling the guilt, having that moment of saying that I would have wanted to go with Ben Solo there. And then obviously she steals Ben's ship and flies out of there. So that's no great move. So what do we got? The reward is up next, Cassia. The hero experiences the consequences of surviving death. So we basically both kind of had, that really the ordeal was that battle there between the two of them. What's the reward for our characters then for getting through this thing?
I think I jumped way too far ahead when I was writing this down. Because for my ordeal, I wrote like Rey, is alone, but she's kind of alone, like, on Octo, and Luke talks to her. Um,
Mm-hmm, hmm.
and then she's also alone, on Exegol. Um, and then like for the reward, I put like Palpatine dies because I was way too far ahead, but maybe I should have just said like reward Rey is able to leave Octo. She's going to confront Palpatine.
Okay. Yeah, you wanted the big reward right now, and that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So for me, as I mentioned, it's kind of coming off that battle between Kylo Ren and Rey there on the fallen Death Star. So Ben Solo now at this point, his reward is that he's returned to the light side and he's given the opportunity to reconcile with his father. So that's kind of the reward for him surviving that ordeal. And then for Rey, I think that her reward is that she stays on the light side, right? She's had these glimpses of her going into the dark side, right? And I think she even mentions to Finn kind of right before the section that she'd had a vision of her sitting on, that Sith throne. So I think for her, not falling to the dark side, healing Ben Solo, she's staying on the light side. I think that's a reward for her. And then obviously she has kind of this wayfinder, and then she goes off to Octo and has the confrontation with Luke there. She's kind of broken at that moment, right? She wants to kind of give up in this reward section, but really having the opportunity to speak with Luke there is her reward, and is given Leia's lightsaber in that moment. So a couple of rewards there for Rey in this instance, and that's going to get us to the road back. So the hero returns to the ordinary world or continues to an ultimate destination. Now would be a good time to get to Exegol, I think, Cassie.
Yeah. So maybe the road back is really just the road to Exegol, 'cause it seems like that's where everyone's going. We have Finn and Janna, going to fight, uh, kind of like leading the First Order, well, ex First Order troops against the First Order.
Hmm.
And then Poe is leading, the people that are there. Lando's gonna, kind of bring everyone. And I think that Kylo is now Ben, and he's gonna go after Rey to keep her from sacrificing himself.
Yeah, that's right. So the road back, the hero returns to the ordinary world or continues to an ultimate destination. Yeah, I had for both Ben Solo and Rey that they're going to Exegol, and that's pretty much where all of the characters are going to be going, right? Kind of the resistance led by Poe is going to be going to Exegol. Everyone in the whole galaxy basically is going to be going to Exegol. I get a little moment there where C-3PO gets his memory back, so no muss, no fuss there. That's good. I really like that moment. We've fully recruited Dio into the droid Star Wars family now at this point, so that's good. And yeah, everyone is making their way to Exegol, right? So you get a really great scene of Luke pulling that X-wing up out of the water, right? So he's finishing that first kind of failed lesson that Yoda gave to him way back in episode 5 when we were talking about that film. So that's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. And yeah, she has the Wayfinder. She's going to lay down the route for everyone to follow to get themselves to Exegol as well. And yeah, going to fly Luke's X-wing there. That's going to get us to our resurrection here. So this is kind of our big like penultimate sort of battle or conflict for our heroes here. So the hero experiences a final moment of death and rebirth, so they are pure when they re-enter the ordinary world. So what do you think about the resurrection step? Where were you at on this? Because I know you got kind of ahead of me here in the story when you're writing
Yeah.
this down. Is that changed any, or is it pretty much back up to where you were on your journey?
So Rey and Ben fight against Palpatine. What I would have liked is if they would have fought together for more than like a few seconds, because they're kind of just like Ben just gets like thrown down, like a really long hole. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know, it's just like Rey's kind of like saying like be with me. And it is cool that the Jedi of the past show up to help her, but I think it's stronger, like if they're talking about a dyad, like have the dyad, uh, handle things a bit more.
Hmm.
Not saying like the Jedi of the past can't show up and like Rey can't have like a heroic moment, but I was like, oh, okay, Ben is here and then he's not, and then uh Rey like has a moment where she is kind of like dying, And it is a beautiful kind of like Romeo and Juliet-esque moment. Uh, but yeah, so Ben saves her life and then he kind of dies and then like I don't know. Do you think like she's kind of like smiling afterward and it didn't really seem to hit her that hard? Like what are your thoughts?
Um, yeah, I think it kind of depends on how you feel about this, on how you feel about Living Atonement. I certainly see kind of the story element for having, Ben Solo sacrifice himself, to give that life force to Rey, so that she can carry on, right? She's meant to be the one that carries on, right? In that instance, I think even Palpatine has that line right when they first kind of get together. They do their little force dyad trick where she passes off the lightsaber to him and he catches up there. And I think Palpatine says something along the lines of, stand together and die together. Yeah, and obviously the two of them, they're in conjunction, give that life force to Palpatine, who is resurrected kind of at this point. The Sith fleet is all uh, all good to go. You even get like a moment there where Palpatine is, doing his electric tomfoolery there against Ben and Rey, right? Basically
Yeah.
giving them their final moments of death, and then turns that to the sky and literally gives like a moment of death to the entire galaxy. Kind of in that moment, I really liked kind of the symbolism there, right? In this
Yeah.
resurrection step, that quite literally the entire galaxy was experiencing this final moment of death and then rebirth at the end when Rey's able to do that, um to get there and gets the aid uh, from all the Jedi and is able to kind of overpower Palpatine at the end there. I don't know that if I would have liked it to play off, I think, any differently. um I like kind of the sacrificial, I guess, aspect of it, from that standpoint. I don't know if Ben Solo, it does seem like he died a little abruptly. I don't know if he died of sadness, um but
A full heart,
like his grandma did. His grandma died of sadness. um yeah, he died with a full heart. He died knowing. And maybe now, I think, I guess if you wanted to kind of analyze why Rey seemed, I don't know that she seemed like she was like happy in that moment, other than potentially like a bit of relief, maybe in that sense. But I guess you've been able to now communicate with the Jedi, and that Ben Solo has been redeemed. So hopefully his future path forward in the Force is going to be a-okay, and maybe we'll find out more about that in the future. But I think it's okay. I think it just really, I think, depends on how much you really wanted that relationship to to carry on. To be honest, I think is where kind of people came down on one side of that or the
Yeah.
other. But I was okay with it. I like the Living Atonement. We talked a lot about that in the podcast, but I think in this instance I was okay with it. I certainly could understand it. But what
I
do you
think
think
I'm
about it?
okay with it now. But yeah, it's kind of just like kiss dead. Okay. Smiles. I'm just like, oh, wow. Okay. Um, yeah. Um, so yeah, so like for that resurrection, I was like, yeah, Ben resurrects Rey and then return with the elixir. Um, it seems like the galaxy is happy. The resistance
Mm-hmm.
is soberly celebrating, you know, uh everything. And I kind of I don't know. It's interesting. I'm like, they could have ended it there. There's a lot of controversy about the ending. I guess the only thing I really didn't like about this ending is that Rey is alone. Like maybe if
Yeah.
they could have just shown the Millennium Falcon and her friends were off, in the corner, and like uh that would have been cool because like I think like they have like the same shot of her, like from Pasana, just like it's a little different.
Hmm.
Um, and then she buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers, and I think I'm okay with like, the sand now. I think like it's kind of like taking it back to like tattooing the source, and paying respect, and maybe Anakin or Ben could have appeared as Force ghosts at the end, but like she would rather be, a Skywalker than a Palpatine, and I think that's, kind of wise. And
Yeah.
she could have said just Rey, but I don't think it's like she's saying like Luke wasn't a Skywalker, he didn't do these things, it's just uh she found a new family,
hmm Yeah, and that's kind of a big theme, within Star Wars is this idea of found family. So that makes sense to me. Return to the Elixir. The hero returns with something to improve the ordinary world for Ben Solo here. He died, so his elixir is that Rey lived. That's the elixir there
I guess that is true.
for Ben Solo. For Rey, the Sith are defeated, the Final Order is defeated, and the galaxy seems to be in peace now. You get the little flash around. It goes to Endor. You see Wicket there at the end. That's nice, and everyone's there kind of at the end. And then yeah, she ultimately goes off to Tatooine. I really like the end of the film. To be honest, I like because we're telling the Skywalker saga kind of in this thing, right? So um to go back to the place and you kind of end the film on probably one of the most iconic images and like all of film history and certainly for the Skywalker family is of Luke standing in front of the binary sunset there, and to end it with that kind of mirrored shots in the next generation, I think is very kind of poetic and all that jazz. I would have liked I don't know about Obi-Wan. I don't even know that he would have fit in kind of irregardless, but to have had Anakin there would have made sense, I think, had the
Yeah.
decision been made to leave Ben Solo live, right? Had they been together at the end, then having Anakin there would have made sense. But Anakin really wasn't anyone to Rey specifically. So I think it makes sense to just have Luke and Leia there, in terms of her character and who she would be looking, out to
I guess
see
that's
kind of
true.
in this mentor moment. Would have
Let me
been more
just
fitting if she would
Oh, go
have
ahead.
gotten Darth Vader's helmet and buried that in the sand. That would have been that would have been cruel and unusual. But yeah,
I
I
think
like
it was on
I
Kijimi. It fell on Kijimi,
oh,
and
that's
the
right. Yeah, it
planet
wasn't on
was
the
Death
ship anymore.
starred.
Yeah,
So,
it's already
um,
gone by then. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I
someone can
forgot.
collect the ashes, and it'll be like, and then when Kijimi was destroyed, it was found on this planet, and a knife will point to it.
That's right. That's right. That's possible. But yeah, so that's kind of why I think that it's okay to just have those two characters. And yeah, taking that family name on, obviously she's not going to be Ray Palpatine, and she's not Ray from nowhere anymore. So
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm gonna rip out my notes. Woo! I can recycle those. Um,
recycle those notes. Yeah, absolutely.
and then, yeah, I guess any other notes on the Rise of Skywalker?
No, that pretty much wraps it up for the Rise of Skywalker. There's a lot in there. Hopefully this hero's journey analysis was helpful or beneficial or entertaining, kind of in some sort of standpoint. But yeah, it was tricky from the standpoint that a lot of these steps were um not necessarily like muddled, but there were a lot of these steps. It was kind of like being on like an escalator, and you're just kind of like bouncing around, walking like up and down this thing as it keeps moving on this forward path. So this one was a little tricky from that standpoint. But yeah, I had a lot of fun going back and watching this, and you'd mentioned it kind of at the top. This one's pretty decisive, really, like all these sequel trilogy films are, but they're films that I like quite a bit. So I was excited to go back and watch these for the purpose of doing this hero's journey analysis for them.
Yeah, so there's the sequel trilogy. We've done a trilogy of trilogies, I guess.
That's right.
And I guess may the force be with you always.
The older Republic podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, as well as everywhere else that Anchor podcasts are distributed. Subscriptions, reviews, and shares help us out.
And if you want to connect with the podcast on Twitter, we can be found at Old Republic Pod. And if you want to connect with me, I can be found on Instagram at astro_droid_.
You can find us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Old Republic Podcast. Our intro and outro themes were composed by Dennis S. Mowers at DennisSMowersMusic.com.
This episode of the Old Republic Podcast has been brought to you by Nicky Dog from Patreon. May the Force be with you. We will be back soon. Bye for now.